Hi, everybody. This is Diane Canals. I hope you've had a good week this week. I've been, excuse me, paying attention to the college students who are on the campuses of their colleges who just happen to be expressing their dissent about a lot of things. About Netanyahu, Palestinians, Hamas, and all that. You know, I understand that they're upset. And I got news for you, I am too. But personally, even if I were to go get 2,500 senior citizens, there would be nothing we could do individually. The cops might come after us, we might say some bad, nasty words, but, you know, it's not going to change anything if we went out as senior citizens and said, look, you want to take me to jail? Take me, I'm yours. But what's that going to solve? Nothing. Unfortunately. I would love to think that I could do something like that, like you kids are doing, and raise a ruckus and stuff like that. But the problem is, what if a cop did take you in to the police station and they locked you up and you couldn't do what you wanted to do, you couldn't go to classes, you couldn't do lots of things. And none of that, the universities are pretty much shut down, most of them, that had all of those things going on in the college to start with. But there's not much we can do. No, I'm talking all of us combined. All you college students, thousands of them on each college that have been disturbing the peace, pretty much, making it hard for the cops to do their jobs. You know what? You could next week be home in your house with your family, and something happened outside, and you go outside, and all of a sudden 25 police cars come up, and they decide that you're part of the problem for whatever reason, whether you've done anything or not. So one of them decides to handcuff you, and you don't want to go willingly, and you turn around and you find out that that one cop was also the cop that picked you up off of the college campus and took you to jail. How are you going to react then? And then once you get out of jail for whatever that was, you're involved in a car accident the next week or 2 weeks later. And you're literally on death's bed. And that same cop finds you when you are at death's door. And that cop tries to talk to you to hang on, to not die. How are you going to feel then? He can save you, or he can let you die. Think about that. Because karma comes back at all of us at some point. It does. And it's when you least expect it. So what I'm trying to say to you all is stop and think what you're saying, to whom you're saying it, and what you really mean. I know you're upset. Almost everybody in our country is upset over the war in Israel with Hamas and Palestine and all the rest of them that are involved. Everybody's worried about that. I can see the people who are, emaciated because they haven't had enough food to eat, practically dying in the streets because somebody is stealing some of the food. And little kids who haven't had a good meal in 2, 3 weeks, needing food, needing water. It's not a pretty sight. But what we're doing here is also not a pretty sight. For you kids who want to, raise hell on campus, that's one thing. But you have to remember that those cops that are on those campuses, that's where they work, near your campus. So if you're caught doing something else, maybe not that's wrong, but if you're in with the gang and the gang's doing the wrong thing and the cop pulls everybody over or arrests everybody, how are you going to feel about that then? Maybe you were doing nothing. Maybe you weren't saying nasty things to the cops. But when you've got a crowd of over 200 people clamoring and trying to run away and trying to get away and saying all kinds of nasty things to the cops, what do you expect? Think about that. We have to live the best way we can. You and I don't have to do the other things that other people are doing. You have a choice. And that choice could be either to try to calm people down, try to say to the cop, I'm sorry, I wasn't really doing anything. Don't arrest me. I'll go peacefully. If you have to arrest me for anything I've done, I'll go peacefully. I'm not going to go and start a fight with you or curse you or do anything like that. Because one of those cops could also be your uncle, could be your brother, could be your brother-in-law, or another relative. How are you going to feel then? We are all responsible for what we do as an adult. You're 18, you're pretty much considered an adult, even though emotionally you're not, because a girl's brain doesn't mature till she's 23, and a guy, it's 25. So you're almost there, but you're not quite. I would think that at those ages of 23 and 25, you would know better than to get in the middle of something like that. I understand you're pissed off. Lots of people are. A lot of people are praying every day that all this ends with a peaceful solution. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not, and neither do you. None of us know that. It's hard to be in a situation like that. So my suggestion is to, if you're not in jail, if you're home, if you're at college and you're watching the TV and just watching things, think about what's really going on over there. Could you do anything to help? Probably not at this point, because if an Israeli army guy has a gun and he sees somebody doing that he doesn't think is right, you're going to get shot. And anybody else that's in the way is going to get shot. So it's not a time to be aligning yourself with any of the people who are there near Palestine and in Israel and all those places. And it's not a time to be there. It's a time to be home, watching and thinking about what could solve the problems besides a ceasefire and letting all the hostages go. But we're not in that group that can say anything about that and make a difference. There wouldn't be anything I could say to Netanyahu except get off your damn high horse and stop this shit. But is he going to listen to me? Probably not. This is something that's going on in another country. It's not in our best interest as individuals to be able to do anything about this. Unless you can talk to the Republicans about the way they're behaving and trying to keep the aid from going over there. I mean, at this point, the people who are being shot at are getting shot. They're getting killed. They're getting maimed. All because they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm sorry to say. But, like I said, it's not under our control. We can't do anything about that. So we need to back up. We need to think of how things can be better if you want to have a peaceful protest. Not shooting cap guns off and shooting your mouth off and trying to keep everything stirred up in the group that you're in. Don't do that, because it's not going to solve the problem. The problem is going to be solved when the people go home and the kids are not in trouble anymore, and they can stop and think about what they can do here in this country so that we don't have those types of things going on. You know, we don't want a bunch of people with guns coming down our streets or into our workplaces or into concerts and things like that, or libraries, or any large area where people gather. We don't need that kind of sensational negative activities. What we need to do is get together with our friends, sit down and write things out. That's my solution. Sit down and write things out as to what you can do together to change what's happening in your city. Because you live in your city. I don't live in your city. You live in your city. It's up to you as kids to talk to the other kids who are not being logical about what's going on. You have to impact your peers, because we are going to have to depend on you. You know, I don't know anybody your age, or very few people, and they're not involved with college demonstrations, that's for sure. So we need to figure this out together, yet separate, in order to keep our streets safer. Because that's what we can control. Sometimes we can control our streets. Not all the time, I know that. Because we got boys with guns coming down those streets and doing bad things too. But that's what I'm saying. We've got stuff that's happening here at home that maybe you could help with. Maybe you could talk to somebody into not doing the wrong thing. Because that's where our peace is going to come. That's where our common sense and our peaceful way of living and we can use our humor sometimes. That's what we have to do to make our lives better. Because we can't go overseas. We can't go doing that. I mean, if you really want to go overseas, go in the service, but I wouldn't recommend it right now. I know lots of guys think, that's what I'm going to do. Well, it may not be the thing to do. Think about your own neighborhood. Think about the guys that you are around most of the time. Do you need to stay in with those groups that you're running with now? Or should you get out of them? Because that's a decision only you can make in your streets, in your town. It's individual thought and action control that you have control over is yourself. Not necessarily anybody else, but you control yourself 24 hours a day. And if you can't control yourself 24 hours a day, then you need to talk to your parents or a relative about helping you get your life squared around. Because nobody's happy all the time. Everybody goes through something a couple times a year. Maybe you're not really happy, maybe you're depressed, maybe you've got things going on in the family that worry the daylights out of you. I understand that. But you have to get help. You can't do it all yourself all the time, because sometimes it gets ahead of you. And whatever the problem is, it begins to control you instead of you controlling yourself. So you know you need to slow down, talk things out with whoever is your best friend, then talk to your parents or your brothers or sisters, and listen. Listen to what makes sense to you. Because we only live one time. We can't go out and make well, maybe we could make a pill that would make us live longer. God knows there's enough doctors trying to shove pills down our throats on a normal basis. But besides that, we need to decide how we're going to live our lives, what we're going to do, and who we're going to do it with. If you've been seeing somebody for 6 months or a year, don't get married next week. Don't do that to yourselves. Your teens are not going to mature, or your brain is not going to totally mature till you're 23 for the women and 25 for the guys. Don't get married before that, because you're just asking for a divorce for later on, maybe having kids that you couldn't afford to take care of. Life can be a bitch sometimes when you make the wrong decisions. And I know maybe you've thought about it for 6 years and 10 ways to 100 ways about it. Give yourself a chance to mature. You have to give yourself that chance. You don't have to go to college when you're 18. You don't have to go to college until you're 23 or 24. Work a couple years. Get some money saved. Get some experiences under your belt before you decide to either go in the service or go to college. Because life can be very good if you take the time to make your decisions. You don't have to make major decisions when you're 18. Most of the time you don't, but some kids have different family setups, and they may not have the money to do what they need to do, period, right away. So it's not a time to make major decisions unless you've got an opportunity for a job that might take you out of the neighborhood and be better for you in the long run. You have to think about that too. So I just want you to sit down and think about things, maybe in a little different manner than the way you have been thinking. Because let's say you live to be 90 years old. There are a lot of people right now who are living to be over 100 years old. So by the time you teens right now get into your 20s and 30s, you need to sit down and realize you're going to be 100 or 110 by the time you die, as long as you take care of yourselves now. No drugs, no boozing it up and stuff like that. You have to take care of yourselves. Even Taylor Swift takes care of herself. She's made a big splash this year with all her music and her concerts and her world tour. Look at what she's done with her life. You want to get into music? Good, do it. But don't get in with the bands that are doing drugs. Stay away from that. Keep yourself sane, because you're out there with your friends. Parents don't know what you're doing when you're out there. Sometimes you don't know what you're doing when you're out there with your friends. But don't let friends who are into other things that you're not into, don't let them influence you to do the wrong thing, because you know right from wrong. 9 times out of 10, I'd say you do. You just have to listen to yourself. Listen to your heart. Would your mom or your dad appreciate what you're doing? Would they approve of it? That's important. Even though you don't think so right now, it's still important. They're probably still in your lives, so you still need to respect them, even though you don't have to agree with them all the time. Nobody said you each had to agree with everybody every 10 seconds, because that's not how life really is. So, with that, my friends, I'm going to say goodnight, and I hope for you all a safe summer. Spring is here, it's just springing, and I'll see you next week. Thank you, and have a great week. Bye bye.